Are we back? Oh, man, can we turn the music back on? That was great. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to Inforce 2023 here in Anaheim, California. I'm your neighborhood-friendly senior security solution architect that focuses on threat detection and incident response, testing the velocity of our ASL interpreters, who are so awesome to make this content accessible. Thank you so much to them, and be sure to thank them in the chat. I have a friend, Jasmine.
Hi! You thought it was you. I saw your hand going up.
I mean, I have another friend over here too.
Oh, that's that. We're gonna talk about that after the show.
I think this friendship. I think this duo is now a trio.
We've done a lot of these segments. I think now, like, we're not. Oh man, I'm hurt.
Yeah, when they said Aiden is gonna be here, I was like, Aiden, Aiden.
He called dibs. He's like, Aiden. I was like, I want to meet Aiden.
Oh,
Can somebody else meet him?
Oh man, you're already gonna be disappointed.
Oh, disappointed? Oh my gosh, there's no way I could be disappointed.
Oh, that's very kind of you.
It's because she hangs out with me too much.
That's true.
So, Jasmine, what do you do?
I am a manager of product management and partner marketing here at AWS.
Nice.
And now we kind of spoiled it, but we have a friend, Aiden, as well, who is a friend. I want to clarify, is a friend, Aiden.
Yes. So I'm with Fortinet. I'm responsible for our cloud technical practice, which includes DevOps, engineering, and architecture.
Now, you and I have done a lot of talking across the last year.
Yeah.
And we've talked about mostly not even just about technology, but just how companies can shift culturally when they move from an on-prem environment to using cloud services and cloud security services. And it sounds like you've been involved with a lot of those different journeys with customers as well.
Oh yeah, there are actually two types of experiences that are going on. There's more of the stakeholder and budget owner experience, and then there's the individual contributor that's having to adjust to the cultural change, right? So think at the organizational level, the whole organization has to become very cloud-centric. Like IT is being reorganized, right? If you're an individual contributor in that environment, you're thinking about, all right, how do I upskill? How do I adopt, very cloud-native technologies into my tooling and my personal experiences? Because that's where the organization is also struggling. There's not the skill sets; they just don't exist at large. And so if you can make yourself valuable, it's just career rewarding for you as an individual.
Yeah, and so there's always the people, process, technology kind of thing. And I think today we're actually going to be talking about technology versus just people and process like we've traditionally spoken about.
Yes.
And so you've mentioned that Fortinet's coming out with some pretty cool, exciting things to use within AWS. Absolutely.
So at this Inforce, we're talking about and announcing our FortiGate Cloud Native Firewall service. If you didn't know this, the FortiGate Next Generation Firewall is, by units, the most deployed firewall globally. We're providing that now as an experience, as a SaaS service. One of the challenges customers continue to come at us with is, there's a skill set gap. I want my security ops to be focused on higher value activities than managing the infrastructure, right? Even if you Terraform it and all that, that's fine. But they don't want any of the operational overhead. And so taking what we have done with FortiGate and saying, okay, now you can consume this as a service, and oh, by the way, there's nothing to configure other than pointing your traffic at it, and you still get the same east-west, north-south inspections that you've always enjoyed, and you can have that as a service strictly.
So gone are the days of receiving a giant piece of hardware on a pallet that you'd have to drag through the hallway and then find a buddy to help you lift it and then slide it into a rack to get a firewall up and running.
Absolutely.
You're just one-click deployment and
yes.
magic.
You literally go to Marketplace, you subscribe, and you update a route table in your transit gateway or VPC.
That's crazy.
Marketplace, that's one of my favorite words.
I know, that's why
I love some Marketplace.
I'm trying to
curry
favor.
In there.
Yes, exactly.
Come on.
You can tell Jasmine's invested in Marketplace.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Tell us how Fortinet's using the AWS Marketplace.
So we want customers to have choice in how they consume, and that's what they're telling us. I mean, that's one of the reasons why SaaS is so important. But customers don't want to, strand capital and licensing. And so we've extended this concept of what AWS Marketplace offers to our own hardware services. So whether or not you're deploying a FortiGate with, FortiGuard security services, a hardware device, in the data center, or you're deploying infrastructure as a service, that can all be consumed on demand now. So think about the workload that you've got to migrate from the data center into the cloud. Now I don't have to worry about, well, now I got to go get licensing, and I just invoke the API to create a token, and then it just starts consuming, right, based on the type of policy I create on that.
And sometimes I'll riff, because I mentioned the on-prem environment. And let's be honest, some of us will be working in hybrid environments for, a long time by design.
Yes.
And it sounds like there's a way for you to be able to have total visibility with your on-prem environment and your cloud-based firewalls with a service that Fortinet also offers too to manage those firewalls, right?
Yeah, well, so again, it's about democratization and choice and being as cloud native as possible, right? And so we've approached this with AWS purposefully to say, all right, how do customers consume AWS services, right? So are you using AWS Network Firewall? Are you an existing Fortinet customer with a hybrid fleet? And you want a dedicated management plane for all of that, right? Because you want to manage a single security context across the entire estate. So we make that flexibility possible through, whether you're consuming FortiGate CNF as a SaaS, infrastructure as a service, or hardware. It's a single policy framework and pane of glass, essentially. I think the term's getting old, isn't it?
Comprehensive view.
Right. Total visibility. But you get to see the entire estate. And by the way, I can create intent-based policies that aren't so specific to an IP address and a port. I can say, look, if it's got intellectual property on it, if it's got certain metadata values, don't let it, communicate with the outside world potentially, right? And if these workloads are very ephemeral and they move from place to place, and we can drag that policy application anywhere.
And one thing also is you mentioned, you could do infrastructure as code, you use an API, you're using all of these terms that I have learned to love because it allows us to do security at scale.
Yes, exactly.
No, security is no longer looking to be barriers of adoption, but proactive enablers.
Yes.
I'm watching you. We need to enable our developers, and by doing that with scalable solutions like you got,
yep.
We get to run with them instead of either run behind them or get ran over by them.
Or just don't get in their way, right? So when you're using metadata-driven policies, as an example, I don't have to do any MACD or moves, adds, changes activity. I know. I've been coached on acronyms. So,
it's good self-correction there.
I like MACD though.
Yeah.
The app dev guy or girl can deploy an application, and that application, as long as it meets the policy framework, the traffic goes through. Nobody has to make it. There's no change activity.
Yeah.
That's, and you're moving your security practice. If you're a security operator, you're focused on resolving problems. You're adding value to your business. So I think it goes back into the cultural experience to say, all right, I can upskill, I can solve problems at the organizational level, and we can develop more advanced work streams that include like a DevSecOps practice, right?
Yeah, that's really cool.
So it sounds like there's a lot of different roles involved, but and as you're talking about it, you're covering all of the different ways that people can engage with Fortinet in this way, right? You've talked a little bit about the developers and how they're doing it. You've talked about the billing and the licensing and how that's a little bit simplified. Tell us about that experience and what it is and how you want different people to engage.
Well, I think you have to look at the organizational level. There are different personas involved in the cloud journey, and that's that cultural shift, right? So whether you're talking about somebody who's responsible for budget, somebody who is responsible for either they own the risk or they have to mitigate the risk, right, which is a different persona. You start to bring them all together, and that's where you go back to what you said, Kyle, about people process. The tools should support the people in the processes, not the other way. You shouldn't factor your processes around the tools. And so I think that's what we've heard that from customers. I think AWS has done a great job of that. And so when we deliver those services natively together, that's the experience you get, right? So you can say, bring your ecosystem, like we can support that, and it becomes a very smooth workflow, and it fits your culture.
I always, when I come up with solutions, so in my day job, believe it or not, I just don't do this full time. So I'm sure our producers would love. We were actually just talking about that, Kyle. Do you do anything else? Yes, I do, I promise. We focus on outcomes, achievable outcomes, and that how we get there is, the use cases of what will fit the use case of X, Y, and Z, but ultimately focusing on that outcome. So if you need to swap the different technologies, you can do that without totally tanking the outcome that you want to achieve.
Right.
And it sounds like you know, Aiden, I love you. You work for Fortinet.
Sure.
But when we have spoken,
Yep.
we talk about Fortinet products a lot.
Yep.
But you and I have just been having just these conversations totally around culture, which
Yeah.
is awesome. And we focus on what can we do to help transform and have these achievable outcomes of transformation in an organization.
Absolutely. I think that's the thing that I love about, well, the conversations that we've had, but being in this cloud experience for the past decade is, seeing how it's been so revolutionary. I was mentioning to somebody a little while ago that 10 years ago, customers were like, oh, I'm not moving to cloud. Like, we own it. We're going to keep owning it forever. And now you can't find anybody who says that. And so it's not even a question of, like, is cloud going to be first? It just is. And I call cloud the new data center. It's where think about, like, deploying SD-WAN at remote sites, right?
Yeah.
The reason you deploy SD-WAN is to get to cloud applications, right? And so then it brings the focus back to the application. And so that entire cultural shift around the application being the most important thing and not the network being the most important thing, even though we deploy network services to protect the application, I think that's powerful.
I mean, within moments like from here, we could just deploy a global infrastructure if we wanted to.
Yep.
Without needing to worry about logistics of shipping hardware. And if I wanted to use a Fortinet firewall, I just click a button, and then Jasmine's like, Kyle, you should use the Marketplace. I'll be like, why, Jasmine? Why should I use the Marketplace? But it's just amazingly powerful how cloud technologies have helped develop and enable
Yes.
innovation too.
Absolutely. It's moving very quickly, and that's one of the things that I think is great about how AWS facilitates the partner ecosystem. There's constant dialogue in both directions about how we can work together.
Yeah.
And I think AWS more than anyone really embraces that ecosystem of ISV partners. And the customer outcomes are better. So if you go back to customer outcomes, like when the partner community works together with AWS. The customer benefits. So I think that's really the shift that has been most valuable.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Again, more music to my ears.
I know. I'm trying to build relationships here.
Too funny.
Yeah.
So, Aiden, you're here at Reinforce,
Yep.
Obviously. This is not a 3D projection of him.
That would be
though
amazing.
That would be pretty awesome.
That's two
You're working
reinforces
on
out.
that.
That's
Yeah.
two Reinforces out for you.
Yeah.
What else do you got going on here at Reinforce that if someone was like, what's all about this Fortinet stuff?
Yeah, so we've got a great location across the expo floor. If you're here at Reinforce, come see us. We've got experts who are well-versed in deploying various use cases and architectures. We'd love to talk to you. So yeah, just come find us if you're here. If you are not here, then go to the Marketplace where you can find our solutions. I think we have about 60
We
there.
do wish you were here, but if you're not, that's okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's okay if you're
I'm
not
trying to
here.
cover everybody. Yeah. So those were the two places that you can start. But we'd love to have a conversation with our customers and do that with AWS.
Awesome.
We're probably dropping some resources here in the chat for those of you who are watching us. But Aiden, if
Yep.
one place you want a person to go to get started on the next thing, where do you want them to go? Where do you want them to click?
Where do I want them to click? Oh, this is a test question. I mean, no. Go to Marketplace. I think that's your first stop. Yep.
And if I recall, there's a couple jam challenges
Oh yeah.
that Fortinet has sponsored that will run at AWS events too. So if you were looking to get hands-on with Fortinet stuff,
Oh my gosh.
you can do that.
Thank you for plugging that.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you are here, you have got to do the AWS Security Jam. It's amazing. It's even more amazinger. I said that on purpose. With Fortinet, our challenges are fantastic. Everybody loves it. So please join us. And that's tomorrow.
It's tomorrow.
It's tomorrow.
Awesome.
Tomorrow.
It's tomorrow, and then so when you do complete it, you can be like, Aiden, I did my homework. That was awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, Aiden, thank you
Thank you guys.
so much for your time. It's always a pleasure to see you.